The children's oncology ward at Hospital Niño Jesus in Madrid was a place where miracles and heartbreak existed side by side, where the laughter of recovering children mixed with the quiet tears of families facing impossible odds. The walls were painted in bright colors intended to lift spirits, decorated with cartoon characters and inspirational messages, but nothing could completely mask the weight of the battles being fought behind each room's door. It was here that 10-year-old Lucas Fernandez had spent the better part of the last 18 months, fighting a rare form of brain cancer that had already defied the doctor's initial predictions and responded to treatments that had surprised even his medical team. Lucas was not like other children his age. The disease and its treatments had aged him in ways that went beyond his physical appearance, giving him a wisdom and perspective that seemed impossible for someone who should have been worried about homework and playground friendships rather than surgery schedules and chemotherapy cycles. Despite everything he had endured, Lucas maintained a spirit that inspired everyone who met him. From the nursing staff who had watched him fight with incredible courage, to the other young patients who looked up to him as an example of how to face fear with dignity. His room was filled with football memorabilia, not because he had been particularly athletic before his diagnosis, but because the sport had become his escape during the long hours of treatment and recovery. He watched matches on the small television mounted on his wall, studied player statistics with the intensity of a professional scout, and dreamed of someday attending a Real Madrid match at the Santiago Bernabeu, though his doctors had gently explained that his weakened immune system made large crowds dangerous for him. Among all the players Lucas admired, Cristiano Ronaldo held a special place in his heart, not just for his athletic achievements, but for the determination and resilience he displayed on the field, qualities that Lucas felt he understood better than most people his age. When Dr. Martinez, Lucas's primary oncologist, approached Ronaldo's management team about arranging a visit, she had been careful to explain the delicate nature of the situation. Lucas was facing what would likely be his final surgery, a last-chance procedure that carried significant risks but represented his only hope for long-term survival. The boy had specifically asked if it might be possible to meet his hero before the operation, not because he had given up hope, but because he wanted to draw strength from someone he saw as the embodiment of never giving up. Ronaldo had received many such requests over the years, and he had always tried to honor them when his schedule permitted. But something about Lucas's story had affected him more deeply than usual. Perhaps it was the boy's age, so close to his own son's, or perhaps it was the understated courage described in Dr. Martinez's letter, but Ronaldo had immediately cleared his schedule and arranged to visit the hospital on a quiet Tuesday afternoon when he could give Lucas his full attention without the media circus that usually accompanied his public appearances. When Ronaldo arrived at the hospital, he was struck by the atmosphere of the children's ward, so different from the medical facilities he had visited for his own minor injuries and routine checkups. Here, the medical staff moved with a special kind of gentleness, their voices softer, their movements more deliberate, as if they understood that they were caring for patients who needed healing that went beyond what medicine alone could provide. The hallways buzzed with the controlled activity of a place where every moment mattered, where small victories were celebrated and setbacks were faced with renewed determination. Dr. Martinez met Ronaldo at the nurse's station and briefed him on Lucas's condition and personality. "He's an extraordinary boy," she explained as they walked toward Lucas's room. "He's been through more in 18 months than most adults face in a lifetime, but he's maintained a spirit that has inspired our entire staff. He's incredibly mature for his age, probably because of everything he's experienced, but he's still very much a child in many ways. He's nervous about the surgery, of course, but he's more concerned about how his parents are handling the stress than he is about his own situation." As they approached room 314, Dr. Martinez paused outside the door. "Lucas doesn't know you're coming," she said. "We thought it would be better as a surprise, but I should mention that he's been having a difficult week. The pre-surgical preparations have been exhausting, and he's been experiencing some anxiety about the procedure. He may not react the way you might expect from a typical young fan. Ronaldo nodded, understanding that this visit was about much more than providing entertainment or distraction. This was about offering hope and strength to a child facing the greatest challenge of his young life, and he felt the weight of that responsibility as Dr. Martinez knocked gently on the door before opening it. Lucas was sitting up in his hospital bed, wearing a Real Madrid jersey that was several sizes too large for his thin frame, the result of weight loss from his treatments. His head was covered with a soft cap that concealed the effects of chemotherapy, and he was working on what appeared to be a school assignment, his textbooks spread out on the adjustable table that bridged his bed. When he looked up and saw Ronaldo standing in the doorway, his pencil dropped from his hand and his mouth opened in complete shock. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Lucas stared at Ronaldo as if he were seeing an apparition, while Ronaldo took in the sight of this brave young boy who had captured his imagination and prompted him to rearrange his entire day. Finally, Lucas found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. "Are you really here?" he asked, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Or am I having another one of those dreams from the pain medication?" Ronaldo smiled and stepped into the room, his presence immediately filling the space with warmth. "I'm really here, Lucas. Dr. Martinez told me about a very special boy who loves football and Real Madrid, and I wanted to meet him before his big surgery." Lucas's eyes filled with tears, though whether from joy, relief, or overwhelming emotion was impossible to determine. "I can't believe you came to see me," he said, his voice gaining strength. "I've watched all your matches, even the ones that were on really late at night. The nurses said I needed to sleep, but I told them that watching you play was better than any medicine for making me feel strong." Ronaldo pulled a chair close to Lucas's bed and sat down, bringing himself to the boy's eye level. "Lucas, I have to tell you something. Dr. Martinez told me about how brave you've been, how you've been fighting this illness with incredible courage, and I realize that you're the one who should be inspiring me, not the other way around. What you're doing every day, the way you're fighting, that takes more strength than scoring goals or winning trophies." Lucas looked down at his hands, clearly moved by Ronaldo's words, but also somewhat embarrassed by the praise. "I don't feel very brave most of the time," he admitted quietly. "Sometimes I'm really scared, especially at night when I can't sleep because I'm thinking about the surgery. I keep wondering if I'll wake up the same person, or if I'll still be able to remember all the things I learned about football, or if my parents will still love me if the surgery doesn't work." The honesty and vulnerability in Lucas's voice touched something deep in Ronaldo's heart. Here was a child grappling with fears that most adults couldn't even imagine, yet he was articulating them with a maturity that was both heartbreaking and inspiring. Ronaldo reached out and gently took Lucas's hand, surprised by how small and fragile it felt, despite the strength he knew lay within this boy. "Lucas," Ronaldo said softly, "can I tell you a secret? I get scared too. Before every big match, before every important moment in my career, I feel that same fear you're talking about. The fear of not being good enough, of letting people down, of not being the same person afterward. But I've learned something about fear. It's not the opposite of courage. Fear is what makes courage possible. You can't be brave without being scared first." Lucas looked up at Ronaldo with renewed interest, clearly surprised to learn that his hero experienced the same emotions he was facing. "Really? You get scared before matches, but you always look so confident on television." "That's the thing about courage, Lucas. It's not about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and doing what you need to do anyway. Every time you've gone into surgery, every time you've faced another treatment, every night when you've been scared but you've chosen to keep fighting, that's what real courage looks like. That's why I wanted to meet you, because you're showing me what it means to be truly brave." For the next hour, they talked about everything and nothing. Lucas shared his detailed knowledge of Real Madrid's tactical formations and player statistics, impressing Ronaldo with his understanding of the game's nuances. Ronaldo told stories about his teammates, about funny moments during training, and about the pressure of playing in front of massive crowds. But underneath their conversation about football ran a deeper dialogue about life, fear, hope, and the ways that people find strength in the darkest moments. Lucas showed Ronaldo a notebook he had been keeping during his treatment, filled with drawings of football plays, letters to his favorite players, and detailed observations about matches he had watched from his hospital bed. One page contained a letter addressed to Ronaldo himself, written weeks earlier when Lucas had been having a particularly difficult day. "Dear Cristiano," the letter read in careful handwriting. "I know you probably won't ever read this, but I wanted to tell you that watching you play helps me remember that some people never give up, no matter how hard things get. When I see you score impossible goals or make amazing plays, I think maybe I can be strong like that too. I hope someday I can tell you thank you in person, but if I can't, I hope you know that you helped a sick boy feel like he could still dream." Ronaldo read the letter silently, his throat tightening with emotion. When he finished, he looked at Lucas with eyes that were bright with unshed tears. "Lucas, you wrote that you hope someday you could thank me, but I'm the one who needs to thank you. This letter, these drawings, the way you've been fighting, you've reminded me why I play football. Not for the trophies or the fame, but for moments like this, for the chance to inspire people like you." Lucas beamed at these words, but then his expression grew more serious. "Cristiano, can I ask you something? Tomorrow, when I go into surgery, will you remember me? I know you meet lots of people, and I'm just one sick kid, but it would mean everything to know that someone like you was thinking about me when I'm in there." The question hit Ronaldo like a physical blow, not because it was difficult to answer, but because of the profound trust and vulnerability it represented. Here was a child about to face the most dangerous moment of his life, and his greatest concern was whether he would be remembered, whether his existence mattered to someone he admired. "Lucas," Ronaldo said, his voice thick with emotion, "I promise you that tomorrow, when you're in surgery, you'll be the only thing on my mind. I'm going to cancel everything else I have planned, and I'm going to stay here at the hospital until I know you're okay. And I want you to promise me something too." "What?" Lucas asked, hanging on every word. "I want you to promise me that when you're in there, when things get scary or difficult, you'll remember this conversation. You'll remember that you're not just fighting for yourself, you're fighting for every other kid in this hospital who needs to see that it's possible to be brave. You're fighting for your parents who love you more than anything in the world. And you're fighting for me, because meeting you has made me a better person. And I need you to get better so you can keep teaching me about real courage." Lucas nodded solemnly, clearly understanding the weight of what Ronaldo was asking. "I promise," he said quietly. "But Cristiano, what if something goes wrong? What if I'm not strong enough?" Ronaldo leaned closer, his voice becoming gentle but firm. "Lucas, listen to me very carefully. Tomorrow, the doctors are going to do everything they can to help you, and they're very good at what they do. But the most important thing you need to know is this: no matter what happens, you've already won. You've already shown more courage and strength than most people show in their entire lives. You've inspired doctors and nurses and other patients, and now me. That's not something that can be taken away from you, no matter what happens in surgery." They talked for another 30 minutes about Lucas's plans for after his recovery, his dreams of attending university to study medicine so he could help other children facing what he had faced, and his hope of someday visiting the Santiago Bernabeu, not as a patient, but as a healthy young man celebrating life. Ronaldo promised to personally ensure that Lucas would have the best seats in the stadium for El Clasico, and they made plans for Lucas to visit team's training facility to meet the other players. As the visit drew to a close, Ronaldo stood up and removed the jersey he was wearing, a special edition Real Madrid shirt that he had worn during training that week. He signed it with a message that read, "To Lucas, the bravest player I've ever met. Your courage inspires me every day. Never give up. Your friend always, Cristiano." But then he did something unexpected. He asked Lucas if he could sign the boy's notebook, the one filled with letters and drawings and observations about football. On a blank page near the back, Ronaldo wrote a longer message. Lucas, today you taught me that true strength doesn't come from winning matches or scoring goals. It comes from fighting battles that no one sees, from being brave when you're scared, and from inspiring others even when you're facing your own challenges. You are my hero, and I will carry your courage with me for the rest of my life. Tomorrow, when you go into surgery, remember that you have an entire team supporting you. Doctors, nurses, your family, and me. We believe in you, we're proud of you, and we love you. Keep fighting, keep dreaming, and keep being the amazing person you are. Your biggest fan, Cristiano. When Ronaldo finished writing, Lucas was crying openly, but they were tears of joy and gratitude rather than sadness. "Thank you," he whispered, clutching the notebook to his chest. "This is the best day of my whole life, even counting before I got sick." Ronaldo hugged Lucas gently, careful of the various tubes and monitors connected to the boy, and whispered in his ear, "No, Lucas, meeting you is the best day of my life. You've reminded me what really matters, and I'll never forget that." As Ronaldo prepared to leave, Lucas's parents, who had been waiting outside to give their son private time with his hero, returned to the room. They were a middle-aged couple whose faces showed the strain of 18 months of hospital visits, sleepless nights, and constant worry, but their eyes lit up when they saw the joy radiating from their son. "Mr. Ronaldo," Lucas's father said, extending his hand, "I can't thank you enough for what you've done for our son. You've given him something that all our prayers and all the doctors' treatments couldn't give him. You've given him hope and happiness on the night before the most important day of his life." Ronaldo shook their hands and looked them in the eyes. "Your son is extraordinary," he told them. "He's taught me more about courage and strength in 1 hour than I've learned in years of competition. You should be incredibly proud of him, and I want you to know that I'll be here tomorrow, waiting to hear good news about the surgery." The next morning, Ronaldo arrived at the hospital before dawn, bringing coffee for the nursing staff and settling into the family waiting area alongside Lucas's parents and extended family. He had cleared his entire schedule, turning down interviews and training sessions to be present for Lucas's surgery. As the hours passed, he found himself pacing the hallways, checking with nurses for updates, and trying to provide comfort to Lucas's family, even though he was struggling with his own anxiety about the outcome. The surgery lasted longer than expected, nearly 8 hours of delicate work as the medical team fought to remove the tumor while preserving as much healthy brain tissue as possible. During those long hours, Ronaldo sat with Lucas's family, sharing stories about their son's wisdom and courage, helping them pass the time with memories of the previous day's visit, and offering silent prayers for the boy who had touched his heart so deeply. When Dr. Martinez finally emerged from the operating room, still wearing her surgical scrubs and looking exhausted but cautiously optimistic, the entire waiting room held its breath. "The surgery went better than we hoped," she announced, her voice carrying carefully controlled emotion. "We were able to remove the entire tumor, and Lucas tolerated the procedure extremely well. He's stable, he's responsive, and while we'll need to monitor him carefully over the next few days, I'm optimistic about his recovery." The relief in the room was palpable. Lucas's mother collapsed into her husband's arms, sobbing with joy and exhaustion, while other family members hugged and whispered prayers of gratitude. Ronaldo stood quietly in the corner, his own eyes filled with tears of relief and happiness for the family that had welcomed him into their most difficult moment. Later that day, when Lucas was awake and alert enough for brief visits, Ronaldo was among the first people allowed to see him. The boy was groggy from anesthesia and pain medication, but his eyes lit up when he saw Ronaldo enter the recovery room. "Did you stay?" Lucas asked weakly, his voice barely audible. "You really stayed here the whole time?" "I told you I would," Ronaldo replied, pulling a chair close to Lucas's bed. "I promised you'd be the only thing on my mind during your surgery, and I kept that promise. You did it, Lucas. You were as brave as I knew you would be." Lucas smiled, expression of pure contentment and gratitude. "I remembered what you said," he whispered. "When I was scared, I remembered that I was fighting for other kids and for my parents and for you. It helped me be strong." Over the following weeks, as Lucas began his recovery, Ronaldo visited regularly, always quietly and without media attention. He He watched as the boy's strength gradually returned, as his cognitive functions remained intact despite the complexity of the surgery, and as his spirit, which had never really diminished, grew even brighter with the knowledge that he had overcome his greatest challenge. The friendship that developed between them became something special and enduring. Lucas did eventually visit the Santiago Bernabeu as a healthy young man, occupying the VIP seats that Ronaldo had promised him, and watching his hero play with the perspective of someone who understood that the real victories in life happen far from any stadium. Years later, when Lucas graduated from medical school and began his residency in pediatric oncology, he would often tell his young patients about meeting Cristiano Ronaldo, not because of the celebrity's fame, but because of the lessons about courage, determination, and the importance of fighting for something bigger than yourself. And Ronaldo, whenever he was asked about the most meaningful moments of his career, would always mention a 10-year-old boy named Lucas, who had taught him that true heroism wasn't about what you did in front of crowds of cheering fans, but about how you faced your battles when no one was watching, and how you inspired others, even in your darkest moments.